Hello, I'm Brenda. This is Write Your Story, and on this video today, we're talking about theme in memoir writing. I know theme can be a little bit of a tricky topic. It can feel like it's so obvious, and yet other times it feels so nebulous. So which one is it? Is it obvious how to find your theme in writing and how to choose it? Or is it a little bit more nebulous, a little bit more organic? Or is it possibly both? I think it depends on you as a writer and on your story and what you're telling. So we're going to look at that today, theme in writing memoir. It's going to be a little bit more of an interactive video, so I will encourage you at places during the video to stop, give some thought to your theme, make a note or two, and then carry on listening to the video. I will be using my memoir, When God Says No, to illustrate some of our points so that they're more tangible. Let's get started on theme in memoir. I'm going to explain to you 5 ways in which you can identify your theme in your memoir. Work through all of them because they're actually integral to helping your memoir to have its theme, its focus, and its hook for the reader. And the 5 steps starts with that big one, my why, or in this case, your why. Why are you writing your memoir? Take a moment and write it down. Why are you here? Why are you listening to this video? Why do you want to write your memoir? And jot something down. And if your first thought is, well, I want to leave a legacy for my children so they know what happened in my life. Why? Go why? Become that 3-year-old curious self again. And keep asking yourself why, until you hit gold. There is a reason why you want to tell the story, and perhaps the reason for you may be more that there's something in your mind that you feel you're wanting to tell people, but maybe there's something in your heart that needs expression. So for now, work with your why. Why do you want to write your memoir? So with regard to my memoir, When God Says No, what was my why? My why was that I wanted to explore grief. When God Says No is a grief memoir, and I wanted to explore the chaos I found myself in when grief invaded my life. Grief is not something we talk about in our society. It's something we want people to get over and move on. We find it uncomfortable for ourselves and for them. And so because of that, I wrote my memoir to explore grief, to explore the chaos of it, to explore why we don't talk about it, to explore my emotions, to explore my process. That was my why for writing my memoir. I wanted a documented account of what I went through. And so that is why I wrote my memoir. Why are you writing your memoir? Really pin it down. The second approach in determining our theme is, what is your story about? Don't tell me it's about your whole life. Well, you can tell me it's about your whole life, but that's not what you want it to be about. You want it to be about something in your life that was important to you, not your entire story. Remember, in memoir, we're not writing a chronological, historical account. We are writing a thematic account of our lives. And that's why it's really crucial to determine the themes in our story. So what is your story about? In my memoir, my story was about the death of my mother, the chaos it threw me into unexpectedly because I was not anticipating her death, the faith crisis it threw me into, and then the relationship with my father because now my mother was removed. And so those are the story elements of what my story is about. What are the main elements of what your story is about? Take time now, pause this video, and write them down. Write your first gut instinct. It's often very reliable. All right, so once we've got our why, once we've got what our story is about, now we look at this universal truth that we're going to hook the reader with. The first two elements, my why and what my story is about me, the writer, and about my story and my life. But even if you want your children to read your book or to read your memoir, you need to make it about them. You need to make it about the reader. I hate to tell you this, but most people, if not all people, are really not interested in your life. They're interested in their lives. They're not interested in what happened in your life, apart from perhaps some voyeuristic element that they may be interested in. But unless you're a celebrity, they are not interested in your life, they're interested in their lives. So if you're going to write a great memoir, your memoir has to speak to the reader and not just about the elements of your life. There has to be something in this memoir for your reader, and it's based on this universal truth. So what is the universal truth? And then I'm going to break it down into two main elements. A universal truth will apply to anybody in any circumstance, in any part of the world, regardless of their skin color, their eye shape, their height, their race, their language, their gender. Whether they live in the south of India or the south of London, they have the same desires because they are humans. It has nothing to do with socioeconomic standing. It has nothing to do with political perspective. It's related to who we are as people, and our soul cries. And so when it comes to universal truth, there are two elements to consider. One, intrinsic human longings. And number two, intrinsic human quests. So let me give you some examples. Intrinsic human longings are to be known, to be seen, to be loved, to belong, to know that we matter, to know that our life has purpose. Those are intrinsic human longings regardless of who you are and where you are on this earth. Now, what about intrinsic human quests? Intrinsic human quests are: who am I? Why am I here? What is life about? Does God exist? How can I live a life of substance, of value, of worth? Those are intrinsic human quests. We are all on a journey searching for them. And so when you look at your memoir, when you look at your why, when you look at what it's about, what then is in it for the reader? What is the universal truth that your story, your memoir illustrates? Because that's really all your memoir is doing. It's illustrating some element of universal truth. Ideally, you're going to choose one, or your story speaks to one, but of course it will speak to other elements of the human quest and the human longing as well. So let me illustrate from my memoir. Mine is how do we, which is another human quest, how do we overcome obstacles in our lives? How do we get through to the other side of something huge and tragic in our life we weren't expecting, because we all experience it. So that is a human quest that we may not be on from the beginning, but somewhere in our life there's going to be something that's going to interrupt our lives, and we're now going to find ourselves in a foreign land unexpectedly, and grief is a huge one. How do we navigate it? How do we get to the other side? So that is the universal truth that my book hangs on. Another universal truth is, does God exist? Is one that I explore in this book. Does my faith count for anything? But the main one is grief. Faith is then one of the sub-themes that run through my memoir. So take a moment now, hit pause, give it some thought, go through those lists that I've spoken about of what are the human quests or the human longings that your story is going to speak to the reader on, and that is what is going to hook them. Okay, take a moment and then come right back. Okay, so as we're working through all this, I'm hoping you're seeing that as we're looking at what is my why, what is my story about, what is the universal truth I'm talking to, that you're already starting to unearth your themes. So now we actually talk about the main topic of theme. So what is theme? theme is that thread that runs through your story that ties all the scenes together. So it can be a topic such as betrayal. It can be a topic such as love, revenge, forgiveness, perhaps even the search for adventure. And there are three ways you can continue to determine your theme. One is the top-down approach, one is the bottom-up approach, and one is the sideways-in approach. So what do I mean about that? The top-down approach is essentially what we've been doing up till now, by actually just working through elements of our story in order to flesh out the theme. And you can continue to do this and do the top-down approach, really looking at your story, looking at what you're wanting to say, perhaps doing some exercises that guide you in this regard, and then determining what your themes are. The danger with this, though, is that it really controls the process. You start to write in a very mechanical way that's controlled, and then you may actually miss an internal, innate story that wants to come out because the process isn't there for it to appear organically. So that is a danger, but it is certainly an approach you can use. The bottom-up approach is the approach I used in writing my memoir, and that is where you just pretty much write your story, write everything you're wanting to think of, everything you're wanting to say, everything that was important to you, get it out on the page, and then you had the essence of your story of what's important to you. And from that, now you work backwards, the bottom-up approach, where you look at your story, you start to sift through some things, and already, if you know your why and what your story is about, you probably have already nailed your main themes, but there are other sub-themes that come through. And then you start to look at your story and you cull it. You remove the areas of your story that don't specifically speak to the theme of your story. Now, in mine, I had two main themes, depression and faith, but I also had sub-themes. I had sub-themes of relationship. I had sub-themes of alcohol abuse and a family that actually rotates around an alcoholic. I had sub-themes of companionship. Those are all elements that came in as sub-themes of my story, but I really only fleshed them out later. I didn't actually start with, oh, I'm going to write a story where a sub-theme is the alcoholic in the family, because it really wasn't what I was wanting to tell. I was more working from the heart story of what I wanted to speak about. But if you're looking for a middle line approach, then the sideways in approach may be right for you. And that one is where take your life from birth until now and split it into segments. And those segments, have a look at, say, 0 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 8, do them in 2 to 3 year, maybe 5 year increments, depending on areas of your life, and choose one scene, maybe two, from each area of your life, each age group, and write that scene. It's also excellent writing practice, plus you're developing material for your memoir. And once you've done that, once you've collated that, you may find that there are themes and threads that are appearing. Or just dive right in, write your story, and the themes may start to appear. So to illustrate another point, I read the first chapter of someone's manuscript. He submitted it to me to just ask me to have a look at it. And even in reading his first chapter, I picked up on themes of socioeconomic lifestyle, what it is to be a poor family in a poor area, bullying. I picked up themes of faith. I picked up themes of emerging activism, social justice. And he didn't really necessarily write with those themes in mind when he wrote his story. But as he told his story and what was important to him, these themes came up to the surface. But he now needs that universal truth that he's going to hang his story on, and to be very clear about his why and what his story is about. And those themes, that story will now then be reworked, rewritten with all of that in mind once he's really narrowed down those themes. And that's what you're looking to do with your manuscript too. So stop the video, take a moment and think about which approach do you want to use? How are you going to write your story? Or have you already written it? And how are you going to sift through and find those other themes to really focus your story, which is the next topic we're going to talk about. So pause, work through that, and come back. Okay, welcome back. We're going to look now at number 5, focus, because that is the purpose of your theme, is to give your story focus. And so you want to choose a storyline, you want to choose a theme, you're wanting to choose everything so that you focus your story. And that is what is going to make your memoir so readable, so not put downable, that everybody's going to want to read your story and keep turning the page. You have to focus your story, which means, I'm sorry, there are scenes that you're going to have to lose from your story. The whole purpose of your theme is to focus your story, and that focus then becomes how you tell your story. So for example, one of my themes being a child-parent relationship, I really only spoke to my child-parent relationships. I didn't talk about relationships with my siblings unless they illustrated the child-parent relationship. I didn't talk about relationships with my husbands unless they illustrated this actual issue with my parents and with my grief and with my faith, because my story was very focused, and the fact that I wrote a personal narrative really helped it to stay focused. So that's another format are you wanting to write that will help to focus your memoir. So there's lots to consider. Don't become overwhelmed. Get writing if you haven't already started. If you finished your manuscript, put your seat back in the chair and start the rework. And do watch my previous video where I talk about how to approach your manuscript after you've written your first draft. And if you really are lost and don't know what to write, choose belonging as your theme and write scenes that you remember where you belonged or where you didn't belong. That is my gem for you. So I will see you in the next video. I'm really excited to have you along as we continue to unpack how to write a memoir. I'll see you in the next video.